feel so ready in one way, and then you step out and you're like, I'm brand new. We got all actors gang right here.
Yeah, that's true.
Original actors gang too.
That's right. Yeah.
We did a lot of work. Karo, Mike, and myself did a lot of work in Lancaster. A lot of work, and it really changed.
Huh?
What happened?
Mike, you were in the actors gang too?
Yeah, he was the original.
Yeah, the original cohort. Yeah.
He was part of the original squad. And I don't think Karo you wasn't in the
no, I came
in the workshop, right? Yeah.
I came later.
I did my workshop at Kern Valley on C-Yard.
I still in contact with Jeremy. Once in a while, I call Jeremy. I tell him what's up.
Yeah. So, all right.
That's true of so many programs, whether it's Goji or the different outfits that we were associated with when we were in Lancaster. If you look at them today, I mean, at that time, ARC hadn't really started. Scott Budnick was still developing the infrastructure for that. But I remember when ARC came online, and then the Actors Gang and Gogi, that was the launch point for Gogi at that time, Coach Taylor.
Yep.
And now all you guys are coaches.
Honestly, I believe in my heart that whole change throughout the whole California prison, it started from Lancaster. It started from you and Joker. That's where the real, actually was the curriculum people started taking. A lot of people was taking serious. I honestly believe that's where it started it all.
Well, I know for sure that it was Mike that you gave me my start. You know what I mean? When I got there, I just came off the main line. You know what I mean? I knew I was heading in a different direction, and we did a lot of things with the LLP, and we started all kinds of the Actors Gang and CGA, and we really kind of expanded. You know what I mean? And then I got a behavioral override. Mike, you had already went down to Valley State. And everybody was getting behavioral overrides. A lot of guys, Karo went to Ironwood. Josh and all of them went to Ironwood. They actually put me up for Ironwood, but sent me to Mule Creek. And when I got to Mule Creek on A-Yard over there, I mean, there was hundreds of people, going to college, dog training, doing all kinds of really, really just amazing stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. And watched a lot of transformations. You know what I mean? A lot of really, really powerful transformations. It was, it helped me, survive what I was doing,
The interesting thing about what we did back then was, if you recall, you had about 200 cats that were on the yard that could go behind the wall and participate in programs because they had less than 2 years, but there was nothing for the rest of us. That's why LLP started, was the idea of, remember we had 15 groups, 25 in each group. I mean, 7 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was raw. All of us, we were just kind of making our way. I can remember going into the groups and all of us talking, and we hadn't developed the curriculum yet. So I would go out to the visiting room, and Ariel would visit, and I would run down what had happened in the various groups, and that's how the curriculum actually began. She formatted it based on our stories and, the information I gave her insofar as our groups. It went from there, but then the Actors Gang came in, and Gogi came in, and a lot of other groups. But what we facilitated at that time, we facilitated from a very, very raw perspective, not really knowing where we were going. All we knew was that we needed something. We felt that shift, that paradigm shift, and what we wanted to do, and putting our families first and working on ourselves. And to me, it was amazingly dynamic.
Yeah, no, it was a great experience. I mean, really, at the end of the day, the guys that we had in that group, right? I mean, all ex-gang members, right? All guys had murderers, right? You know what I mean? Had spent well over 2 decades. Guys like you was already, 35 years in at that point. You know what I mean? Yeah. And and what happened was that I seen the humanity, right? The humanity come out of people, right? The real us. You know, Joker told me one time, he goes, you know what, New York, you're just a fucking actor. And he was right. He was correct. You know what I mean? I had been acting like a gangster my entire fucking life. You know what I mean? And the real David had came out in those groups. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was the thing about it, is that, it allowed us to be vulnerable with each other. And what love was, what intimacy was, putting our families first. I mean, that whole dynamic. And like I said, this was all raw for all of us. We didn't know where we were going. We just knew that we needed to do something. And so we came together as a group. It was no one individual or anything. To all of us. It was really a collective effort. Had we not come together as a group, I don't think it ever would have happened.
Absolutely, I agree.
What brings about that change, you think?
Well, I think there are a number of factors. One is, maturation, age, first and foremost, but it's also dealing with, that historical perspective that we all have insofar as extraordinary violence, the gang, the expendability of being a gang member, understanding that you put yourself in a path that isolates your family from you. And with that maturation comes the understanding that, family should come first, and does come first. So it's setting yourself aside, and even your expendability, and focusing on the family and, the damage done there. And a reference point for that healing. And that's what we were searching for. We were searching for a reference point that would allow us to not only heal ourselves and heal each other, but to heal our families. And, that was for, making our way back out into society. That's where it began. For me, it took another 10 years, but that was a worthwhile 10 years. So after 45 years, I'd reached that point where I had the ability to be reintroduced into society. The unfortunate thing about that is I didn't realize how emotional.
Mike, you're cutting up. James,
Yeah.
can you?
Yeah, I think, it's just in and out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is in and out. But at any rate, it was an extraordinary time and an extraordinary experience. It
really was. I got to say it again. When we had this group of people who had this incredibly extensive criminal history, right? You know what I mean? Crazy violence, right? You know what I mean? Right. Multiple years of politics, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
And then what I learned, I think the greatest lesson that I learned was, that takes skill, right? To be able to navigate that environment, it takes skill. And we were able to take those skills and transfer it over to a legitimate way of living, right? You know what I mean? All we really changed was our worldview and our perspective on you know what I mean? Our value system had changed.
Well said.
And we took those skills and put all of that energy, all of that effort into programming. You know what I mean? And not only that, we were helping other people. People were learning. We were growing. You know what I mean? It was like an organism. You know what I mean? And really, now California is taking on that model. They literally call it the California model. People are putting all of that energy, into doing the right thing rather than putting the energy into all of the destructiveness and the hatefulness and all of the things, the self-hate that we learned, and we're able to transform it into a much, much better thing,
So are there
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, bro.
Are there because, when we were inside doing the groups and we flipped the script and all that stuff, now coming outside, does that overcompensation work? Have you gone through, we got Karo's been out 6, David, you've been out 5, I've been out 5, and Mike's been out he's going to be on his first year. When you get out, do those groups still continue? I know you talked about Delancey Street a little bit and some of that stuff, but after coming out of transitional housing, how does a long-term offender through reentry plug back into that type of stuff, or does it just disappear?
Well, for me, in the first year, it was a little bit difficult because I went into San Francisco and I was still very hyper vigilant, right? You know what I mean? I was still living like, I remember going into a coffee shop and waiting online to get a cup of coffee. And some guy came up behind me and stood right behind me. And I looked at him like, what the fuck are you doing standing behind me? Like, you know what I mean? In prison, no one would ever do that, right? If they did, they'd be like, excuse me, I'm behind you, right? You know what I mean? So I think the groups help because I remember when I was doing the cognitive behavioral therapies, there was this idea of immersion therapy, right? So I had this problem with lines, and I had this problem with crowds, and I had this problem with, people being around me, right? In close proximity to me. And so I remember I was working in San Francisco, and I worked the Pride Parade. So there was 40,000 people in downtown San Francisco, right, having this party for the Pride Parade. And I told myself, you know what? I'm going to walk in the middle of this crowd. I'm safe. I'm not in high desert. I'm not in Folsom. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not in any kind of danger, right? You know what I mean? I'm not in an environment where everybody around me is a potential threat. And what I did was I walked through this crowd and just convinced myself that, you know what? I'm safe. I'm in a new environment with new rules. Right, you know what I mean? Like, I did take a lot of the rules out of prison with me, on the street, and it was working against me. You know what I mean? It really was. And then it was in that experience that I said, you know what? I'm not in danger no more. I'm not a threat. No one around me is a threat. You know what I mean? And I was able to slowly, adjust to these. And I don't have that problem no more. You know what I mean? I don't worry about crowds. I don't worry about getting stuck in a place that I can't get out of. Right? You know what I mean? Weapons don't bother me. I remember when I first got out, and so people have like big knives that they use. Right? They just use it for a tool. And I remember the first time I seen a guy pull out a knife, I was like, oh shit, because back in the days, I would either remove myself from the position, right? You know what I mean, or attack. And I realized that, no, a knife is a tool. You know what I mean? It's we're living in a different world.
Well, look, it definitely helped because see, like when you guys got released, you guys went to the reentry house, and slowly you guys just reenter to society. So I will say it definitely works because for me, I came straight to Armenia from, they just sat me in a plane and sent me straight to Armenia. So when I came out, there is no re-entry house, there is no parole board, there is no nothing. I'm completely free man. I don't have to report to nobody. So if this was the circumstances that I didn't have life sentence, I didn't have to go through, change my life and change my thought process, change my perspective of life and everything, I would be immediately in trouble. Because when I came out of the airport, I walk up to the door and there was 2 police officers, both was female. And they were just hanging out over there, one on each side of the door. So I walk up to them and I stopped. And I was just looking at one of these officer, and she was like, what do you want? And I told her, well, just open the door. And she's like, what? Like, I ain't gonna open your door. You open the door. Like, what do you think this is? And I'm like, shoot. I'm free. But, imagine you're coming home with a long sentence and you don't have no tools to, live your life in the street. So it definitely helped me because without those tools, without what I learned over there in prison, all of these classes that I took, by the way, I think I got like 62 or 63 completion of the classes, and it was very difficult for me because it's like there's in some way for the guys that got released to California or over there that they have to go through the parole process. This in some way you still on your toes, like you already know you can't do this, you can't do that, but. For me, if I want to drink, I would drink. If I want to get high, I would get high. So if my mind wasn't strong enough, I would get in trouble real quick. But I use every single tool that I learned in prison in all of these classes. And so that's the only way I was able to keep myself, trouble-free, drug-free, and just become this person that, now, like, even over here in Spain, like, everybody's looking up to me. In Armenia, same thing. In Holland, same thing. And that's results of those classes.
You faced extraordinary adversity when you were first released. I mean, weren't you released to ICE?
Yeah, well, I got released. I think it was like 6 something in the morning, and then ICE came pick me up, and I went straight to Adelanto. Adelanto is an ICE facility. It's a private facility, and by the way, I'm gonna tell you this story. When I was inside a van that we were going to ICE detention, there was 2 people with me. It was all 3 of us, right? And one of them been down 32 years. The other one was young, super active. I was like 20 years old. And I can see he was sitting behind me and my friend, which in end, we all become friends. So now we're in a van, we're heading to ICE, but I can see the kid behind me. He's all like, he's trying to figure out, like, are we going to take enough on this guy, or he keep looking at the older guy. So, but we had a long, about like hour and a half ride to detention, and we were just conversating, and then, so when we get there, they took off the handcuffs. So now none of us have handcuffs. So the older guy, he came to me, is like, well, bro, he goes, really nice meeting you. He introduced himself, shook my hand, and the kid did the same thing. And then we all end up in the same dorm. The tools that I learned in prison in all of these classes, immediately it changed. Even the guys even in detention, they were just like around me. They were never talk about dope. They were never talk about like violence, nothing. If they were, we were together at a table, whether we're playing cards or we're just conversating, the conversation would be all positive. And that was because of that, what I learned, how the tools that I can use to prevent stuff from happening, or even when some situation happens, and how to handle yourself in a situation without getting in trouble. So, yeah, Mike, I spent about a year and a half in ICE detention, and then after that, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't continue my case, but it would mean that I was going to be in there even longer. So, and then plus, when I came to US 1991, I came with a Russian passport. It was says USSR. SSSR, right? So SSSR don't exist. So that what that means, that I'm undeportable. I don't have a country to be deported to, right? So usually when you sign your papers, like, okay, just send me back. And then, so they don't have a place to send you back, so they release you in the United States. So eventually I told my family, like, look, I was trying to do this right way, go to the court, see the judge and everything, but this thing is not working out. I don't think they're going to grant me a stay in US. So I just signed my papers knowing that they're just going to release me because they can't deport me nowhere. And somehow ICE maneuvered, I don't know what they did, and they just print out a paper, and then they called me in. It's like, hey, we're going to release you to US. So we need your address, where you're going to stay. All of this stuff, your family member, if you have a work waiting for you. I said, I have everything. So I give him everything, and they start giving me papers to sign. And I was so excited that this is it, right? So I wasn't really looking at what I was signing. So they slid a paper in the stack of papers, and I was just like, they were just flipping a page, and then there was mark, sign, and I was keep signing it. So the paper that I slid in there, what happened was, the paper was saying that I was asking Armenia for a political refugee. So Armenia accepted me. So next thing I know, I'm in a plane going back to Armenia.
That's terrible.
and because I get there in the airport, KGB KGB just puts me straight in a room, and it was blessed that there was two really good people. Those two officers were very good people. It's like, where you came from? Like, who are you? Why we don't know anything about you? I'm like, I don't know. All I have is this paper. So, and then they were talking to each other, like, what are we gonna do with this guy? And the other guy goes, nothing. He goes, hey, go live your life. Enjoy your life. And that was it.
That's crazy.
That was it. I came out. Now I'm just like, I have to rely on the tools that I learned. Otherwise, I would be just like, because I didn't know nothing. I didn't know the money was different, and I would go to store. I didn't know, like, it's like there is like thousands, like $1, it's 1,000 drums, right? So if you buy something, it's like 40,000, like 50,000, 25,000. So one time I went, it was like 5,000, and then I'm looking at, I don't even know, like, what did it look like, the money? So I gave her 50,000, and she's like looking at me, and I immediately assumed like that wasn't enough. That's why she was looking at me. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, you just take it. Like, what is this? It was, no, this is way too much, right?
Yeah, so for you, it wasn't even just the idea of, like, when we were released, at least we know what the currency is and other things, but now you're in a country where you're unfamiliar with the currency, you're unfamiliar with the culture, the language, I mean, the whole thing. I mean, my goodness, that's a lot to have to endure. So when you talk about utilizing the tools that you had developed while you were incarcerated, that's huge. I mean, that takes it to an entirely different level.
Mike, you know, the most important thing that for me, that you guys had, I didn't have, it was the support. It was my peer support. Because, you know, over there is like, you know, you're going through something. Like when I was still in prison, and if I would go through something, there was New York, Josh, David, Adrian, you. It was like so many people. I could go easily talk to them. I'm like, hey, this was going on, and, you know, get a peer support, you know, like, you know, have a little conversation. I didn't have that. That was my main thing, because I couldn't talk. Over there in Armenia, you talk about like emotions and stuff like that. There's just like, yeah, bro, you lost your mind. Like, what do you mean? Like, what emotions? Yeah. You know, you crazy? Like, you know, you're talking about all these positive.
You know, I'll tell you what, when the day I got released, when I got released, I was in Mule Creek, and the feds came and picked me up, and they transferred me to Sacramento County Jail, right? So I had to deal with the feds because I had a fed parole hold. So eventually they OR'd me, and I remember when they let me out of Sacramento County Jail, and they literally just opened the door, right? Just opened the door. And I had like some paperwork I had to report to San Francisco. I had to go to Delancey Street, all of these things. So I make it to the train station to get into to get to San Francisco, and I had a debit card, right? So the money, they didn't release me with any cash. Whatever money I had on my books, they put on the debit card. I've never used the debit card. I didn't know what to do. And so I make it to the train station, and I go to buy a ticket to San Francisco, and there was this really, really good guy behind the counter. He's like, I need to see some ID. And I'm like, bro, I don't have any ID. I've been locked up for 30 years, right? You know what I mean? And I literally broke down. I started crying. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do, right? And this guy came behind the counter and took me over to the debit card machine, right? Showed me how to do it, right? You know what I mean? Put me in front of a fan and got me a bottle of water. And he's like, look, I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of you. I didn't know this person, right? I did not know this person, but he had seen how emotionally overwhelmed that I was. I mean, it was just like, it was actually too much. It was really too much. And thank goodness for the halfway house, because what happened is that in 111 Taylor, it was a little bit more structured. You had to sign in, you had to sign out. You know what I mean? You had a curfew. There was a lot of guys that was in the same situation. And Karo had mentioned it. There was peers to go to. There were guys in the same situation, and some of them had more experience, and they were like, look, okay, this is what you do. Okay, here's where the DMV is. You know what? I'll take a ride with you. You know what I mean? So I'll get a pass, and we'll go get your identification, and I'll take you to go get a phone. You know what I mean? All of these type of things. So I think Karo made a really good point when it came to peers, that people in the same situation were really able to help me through that thing. And then it was only a couple of months later when I adjusted that I was able to do it for the new guys that were coming out. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important.
Yeah. These are like reentry pitfalls, and you know, you feel so ready in one way, and then you step out and you're like, I'm brand new. Everything is a first experience, right?
Yes.
And I'm interested. You know, there's like a 10-year window of lifers, right? When we were doing time, you were doing life, we didn't see anybody going home, right? Now there's about 10 years of lifers coming home, and you know, I'm interested in replicating and getting back to what got us here, especially through the stages of reentry, right? When you're at 1 year, when you're at your second year and you drop parole and you've been on parole or probation your entire life, right? And then now you have to rework your whole relapse prevention plans, everything, because, you know, for me, that was always a given. You know, you got to watch out for the police, the probation officer, the parole officer. You kind of snap into a different character when it's time to go over there and this and that. So for life for reentry and life for success, this is what I've set about to do in this mission, and why we're assembling like this, right? Because no matter where you are at, no matter who you are, life comes at you, right? And then what happens is, when we don't have a support group, or we're not incarcerated, and we don't have a whole group of people around us, and even our family members, they're really unfamiliar. They have their own ripple effect that's happened from us, right? So then I'm interested in creating programs at 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out, 10 years out, because a couple wrong decisions and we know what the consequences are.
Excuse me on the tip. This ain't about what we came from. It's about what we do and what we survive. For a minute. For stories. Stories. Decades behind walls. But the real sentence was never the time. It was the responsibility that came after. I watch men disappear behind concrete and steel as their names lose their hope, forget how to feel. But some found a purpose inside that pressure and pain, turned the struggle into lessons, turned the losses into change. From the tier to the streets, from the cell to the crowd, the ones who made it out got a duty now, not chasing old glory, not living in the past, building something stronger that's designed to last. Because freedom ain't a finish line, it's a brand new start. It takes work on the mind, it takes healing the heart. The same men who survived the darkest nights, now standing in the light, teaching others how to fight. Excuse me on the tier, let me tell you what I see. Life is turning pain into a legacy. Mike Thompson, Karo, New York, and James Jaymes in the fight, bringing hope to the community, bringing wrongs to right. Not defined by the years, not defined by the cage, defined by the wisdom earned on every page. When we go to the world, here lifetime behind walls teaches lessons most don't know. The cost of every choice and the price that people owe. But leadership ain't control, it's lifting someone higher, taking what was broken and rebuilding the entire. The same voice that once echoed through concrete halls now speaks to the community, answering the calls. A mentor, a teacher, a man with a mission, turning experience into positive transitions. Cellmates through rough years, different roads travel, but the mission stays the same. Survive the storm, step forward, change the game. Not asking for applause, not looking for a crown, just showing what's possible when you put the old life down. Peer support, accountability, helping people prepare, showing the next generation somebody really cares. Because coming home is more than walking through a gate. It's rebuilding relationships and changing your fate.
The world sees a conviction. We see a human being. The world sees the years. We see the lessons. The greatest proof of transformation is what a person does with the knowledge they earn.
Excuse me on a tear, this is bigger than a show. It's about planting seeds. Everywhere we go, form a life is with a purpose. Standing tall and free, creating a future built on accountability. From the prison walls to the community streets, the mission continues, the circle completes. Long after parole, the work still appears, because the real freedom begins when you conquer your fears. Excuse me on a tear. The door open, but the mission stayed. Some men leave prison,